In the heart of New York City, where power and ambition shape destinies, two lives collide in a storm of scandal, betrayal, and an unexpected love that defies all odds. Olivia Carter, a brilliant cardiologist, thought she had escaped the grip of her ruthless ex-husband, Marcus Bennett. But when a single night in a luxury hotel with billionaire Ethan Lancaster turns into the headline of every tabloid, her world spirals into chaos. Ethan, a man who controls everything except his own heart, never intended to fall. But as lies unravel and secrets emerge, he faces the ultimate choice: protect his empire or fight for the woman who changed everything. Power, deception, and a love worth risking it all. What will they choose? Before we begin, let us know. What time are you listening to the story, and where are you? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Olivia Carter sat at her small dining table, staring blankly at the untouched cup of coffee in front of her. The faint hum of the refrigerator was the only sound filling the air in her modest Manhattan apartment. Outside, the city bustled with life. Car horns, distant chatter, and the occasional siren cutting through the morning haze. But inside, everything felt still, almost suffocatingly so. She had signed the final divorce papers just a few hours ago. 10 years of marriage, reduced to a neatly stacked pile of legal documents. Marcus Bennett had made sure of that. Marcus. Even thinking his name made her stomach twist. He had once been her world, a man she admired for his intelligence and ambition. But that ambition had turned ruthless. Somewhere along the way, love had been replaced with control, and affection had given way to manipulation. He had cheated, repeatedly. And when she had finally found the courage to leave, he had fought her every step of the way, dragging out the divorce, making her life a constant legal battle. Now it was over, on paper at least. Olivia ran a tired hand through her dark brown hair and exhaled. It should have felt like a victory, freedom, a fresh start. But instead, she felt like a ghost of herself, drifting through the routine of her days without truly living them. Work had become her escape, the only place where she still felt like herself. Her phone buzzed on the table, pulling her from her thoughts. A message. Unknown number. Meet me at the Sterling Hotel, room 1402. There's something you need to know. Her brows furrowed as she reread the message. No name, no details. Just an address and a vague promise of information. She should ignore it. It could be a mistake. Or worse, a setup. And yet, something about it made her hesitate. She took another sip of her now cold coffee and glanced at the clock. Her shift at the hospital didn't start for another few hours. There was no logical reason to go, but logic had long since lost its grip on her life. Standing up, Olivia grabbed her coat, slipped on her heels, and stepped into the chilly New York evening. Olivia stepped out of the cab in front of the Sterling Hotel, its grand entrance illuminated by golden lights against the deep blue of the Manhattan skyline. The doorman, dressed in a crisp black uniform, nodded as she passed, his practiced politeness giving nothing away. The revolving glass doors opened smoothly, ushering her into an atmosphere of quiet luxury. The air was laced with the subtle scent of fresh lilies and expensive cologne, the marble floors reflecting the soft glow of chandelier light. She hesitated for a moment, glancing around the lobby. The Sterling was not just any hotel. It was one of the most exclusive in New York, a place where the elite gathered in hushed meetings over aged scotch and quiet negotiations. What business did she have here? Still, the message had been clear. Room 1402. Olivia made her way to the elevators, pressing the button with steady fingers, though her mind buzzed with uncertainty. The polished doors slid open with a muted chime, and she stepped inside. As the numbers ascended, she couldn't shake the sense of unease creeping up her spine. What if this was a mistake? What if Marcus had something to do with this? No, he had no power over her anymore. Not legally, not emotionally. At least that's what she told herself. The elevator stopped on the 14th floor, and she stepped into the quiet hallway. The plush carpet muted her footsteps as she walked toward room 1402. Taking a deep breath, she knocked. The door opened almost immediately. Standing before her was a man she had never met, yet whose face was unmistakable. Ethan Lancaster. Tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, he exuded an effortless power that came from years of commanding boardrooms and closing high-stakes deals. His sharp, piercing blue eyes assessed her with a flicker of curiosity, though his expression remained unreadable. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them crackled with the weight of unspoken questions. Then, Ethan broke the silence. "I assume you received the same message I did," he said, his voice smooth, measured. Olivia crossed her arms. "Seems that way. And who exactly are you?" Ethan's lips quirked slightly, not quite a smile. "Ethan Lancaster. And you?" She didn't answer immediately. She had no idea what this man wanted or why she was here. "Dr. Olivia Carter," she finally said. His brow lifted slightly. "A doctor. Interesting. And do you have any idea why we're both standing here?" She shook her head. "I was told there was something I needed to know. That's it." Ethan stepped back, gesturing for her to enter. "Then we're in the same situation. Come in." Olivia hesitated. Every instinct told her to turn around and leave, to avoid whatever game was unfolding here. But there was also a nagging curiosity, an urge to understand what had brought them both here. Cautiously, she stepped inside. The suite was exactly what she had expected. Lavish yet minimalistic, the kind of place that exuded quiet wealth rather than ostentatious excess. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Manhattan skyline, the city twinkling like scattered diamonds against the darkness. A sleek leather sofa, a glass coffee table, a well-stocked bar in the corner. Ethan closed the door behind her and crossed his arms. "So, Dr. Carter, any theories?" Olivia studied him. "You seem awfully calm about all of this." He shrugged. "I don't do panic. And you?" "I don't do games," she countered. His eyes flickered with something. Amusement, perhaps. "Neither do I," he said. "So let's figure out what this is." Olivia stood by the large window, looking out over the shimmering lights of Manhattan. The city stretched before her, bustling with life, yet she felt strangely detached from it all. She had spent years in this city, yet for the first time, she realized how incredibly small she felt within it. Behind her, Ethan poured 2 drinks at the minibar, the sound of ice clinking against the glass breaking the silence between them. "You don't seem like the type to respond to anonymous messages," he said, handing her a glass of whiskey. His voice was calm, steady, but there was a hint of curiosity beneath it. Olivia hesitated before accepting the drink, rolling the cool glass between her fingers. "I'm not," she admitted, "but lately, I don't know what type of person I am anymore." Ethan studied her for a moment before settling into one of the sleek leather chairs. "That makes 2 of us," he said, taking a slow sip of his drink. A soft, dry chuckle escaped Olivia. "So, what's your excuse?" "You don't seem like the kind of man who gets manipulated into walking into strange situations either." Ethan leaned back, exhaling as he swirled the amber liquid in his glass. "I don't. But sometimes curiosity wins over logic. And tonight, for some reason, I stayed." She turned toward him fully now, tilting her head slightly. "Because of the message?" "Because of you," he corrected, holding her gaze. "Whoever sent that message wanted us here together. That's what I'm trying to figure out." The weight of his words settled between them, thick and unspoken. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke, both lost in their own thoughts. Olivia took a sip of her drink, the warmth of the whiskey spreading through her chest. "You know, it's strange," she mused. "I used to believe in things like fate, that everything happened for a reason. But life has a way of proving me wrong over and over again." Ethan's gaze darkened slightly, as if he understood that feeling too well. "I stopped believing in fate a long time ago," he admitted. She raised an eyebrow. "Why?" He exhaled slowly, the flickering city lights reflecting in his eyes. "Because fate never gave me a choice," he said, voice quieter now. My mother died when I was 19. Heart disease. She was everything to me, and I couldn't do a damn thing to stop it. Olivia's grip on her glass tightened slightly. She had spent years studying medicine, fighting to prevent exactly that kind of loss. And yet sometimes, no matter how much knowledge or skill one had, it was never enough. "I'm sorry," she said sincerely. Ethan gave a small shrug. "I made peace with it a long time ago, but it taught me something. Love is just another weakness. You invest everything in it, and when it's gone, it takes a part of you with it." His words hit deeper than Olivia expected. She looked down at the amber liquid in her glass, her own memories surfacing. The nights spent crying in the bathroom, Marcus's cold words echoing in her mind, the realization that the man she had given everything to had never truly been hers. "I thought love was supposed to last forever," she murmured. "I built my life around that idea. I was wrong." Ethan watched her carefully. "Marcus?" She glanced at him, surprised. "You did your research?" He smirked slightly. "Number. But I recognize that kind of pain." Olivia swallowed, forcing down the lump in her throat. "Marcus was my husband, a brilliant lawyer, charming, ruthless, the kind of man who could talk his way out of anything, and I was foolish enough to believe I was different, that I mattered." Ethan didn't interrupt, didn't offer hollow words of comfort. He simply listened. "For years I ignored the signs," she continued. "The late nights, the carefully hidden messages, the whispers that followed him. I convinced myself that marriage was about trust, about endurance, that if I just held on a little longer, he would change." Ethan's jaw tensed, and he didn't. She let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped inside her for years. "Number, he didn't. And when I finally left, he made sure I paid for it." Silence stretched between them, heavy yet strangely comforting. Ethan set his glass down on the table. "People like that don't love, Olivia. They collect. They possess." She met his eyes, and for the first time she saw something there beyond the cold exterior, a flicker of understanding, of shared wounds that had never truly healed. "So what does that make us?" she asked quietly. Ethan exhaled, a dry, humorless chuckle escaping him. "Survivors, I suppose." She considered that for a moment before nodding. "Maybe. Or maybe just two people who are too tired to keep pretending." A comfortable silence fell over them again. For the first time in a long time, Olivia didn't feel the need to fill the empty space with words. And Ethan, for all his carefully constructed walls, didn't seem eager to leave either. They were strangers, yet somehow they weren't. Olivia stirred awake, the weight of sleep still clinging to her as she blinked against the soft glow filtering through the sheer curtains. It took her a moment to register where she was. An unfamiliar room, the air scented faintly with expensive cologne and something undeniably foreign. The hotel, the Sterling, the night before. She sat up slowly, the silk sheets slipping from her shoulders as reality settled in. Her mind replayed the evening, the conversation, the confessions, the unexpected ease of sharing the same space with a man who, hours earlier, had been a stranger. But nothing inappropriate had happened. That much was clear. Across the room, Ethan stood near the window, dressed in his shirt from the night before, his sleeves rolled up as he scrolled through his phone. His expression was unreadable, his posture rigid, as if he were bracing for impact. Something was wrong. She cleared her throat, pulling the sheet around herself instinctively. "Morning," she murmured. Ethan didn't respond immediately. Instead, he exhaled, rubbing his temple before glancing at her. "You might want to check your phone," he said, his voice lacking its usual composure. A sinking feeling coiled in Olivia's stomach. She reached for her purse, fishing out her phone and unlocking it. The notifications hit her all at once. A dozen missed calls, messages from colleagues, emails flagged urgent, but it was the news alerts that made her breath catch in her throat. Billionaire CEO Ethan Lancaster spotted with mystery woman at the Sterling Hotel. Who is she? Exclusive. Dr. Olivia Carter, not just a doctor, a love affair with power. Scandal at the Sterling. What happens behind closed doors? Her pulse thundered as she scrolled through the articles. Her name splashed across sensationalized headlines, her picture plastered alongside Ethan's, captured in grainy, long-lens shots of them together. One image in particular sent a wave of nausea through her, Ethan opening the hotel door for her, her silhouette stepping inside. It was damning, misleading, but damning. Jesus, she breathed, her fingers tightening around the phone. How did this get out so fast? Ethan set his phone down with a controlled precision that told her he was barely holding on to his temper. Because the press feeds on scandal. Someone wanted this story to break, and they made damn sure it did. Olivia swung her legs over the bed, her mind racing. I need to fix this. Ethan let out a short, humorless laugh. Fix it? Olivia, this isn't something you fix overnight. The second this hit the media, it took on a life of its own. She pushed to her feet, ignoring the way her head spun. This is my career, my reputation. They're making it sound like we... She couldn't even finish the sentence. Ethan's gaze locked onto hers, steady but sharp. Like you slept your way into power? Her breath hitched, anger and humiliation twisting together. Yes. A long silence stretched between them. Then, in a voice colder than she had heard from him before, Ethan asked, Who benefits from this? It took her a second to understand what he was implying. But as the pieces clicked into place, a familiar dread seeped into her bones. Marcus. The thought of her ex-husband, always calculating, always watching, made her stomach churn. He would love nothing more than to see her name dragged through the mud, to remind her that no matter how far she thought she had come, he could still pull the strings. Ethan studied her reaction carefully. That's what I thought. Olivia swallowed hard. I need to get to the hospital. I need to get ahead of this before it was too late. But it already was. Her phone buzzed again, and this time she answered without thinking. Dr. Carter. The voice on the other end was clipped, professional, but carrying an edge of disapproval. We need you to come in immediately. The chief of surgery. She closed her eyes briefly. I understand. She ended the call, her hands shaking slightly as she turned to Ethan. I have to go. Ethan nodded, his own phone vibrating in his hand. You're not the only one. My board isn't happy. She had expected that. A man like Ethan Lancaster didn't get to the top without being scrutinized. But her? She had spent years building a name for herself outside of Marcus's shadow, and now, in a matter of hours, it was all unraveling. Ethan stepped toward her, his expression unreadable. You don't have to do this alone. She hesitated, searching his face. I appreciate that, she said finally, but I do. She turned and left before she could second-guess herself. Olivia stepped into the hospital lobby, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. The usual morning rush was in full swing, doctors in crisp white coats moving between departments, nurses juggling clipboards, the distant hum of monitors beeping. It was a place that had always felt like home, the one place where she had control. Not today. She could feel the weight of the stairs even before she reached the administrative desk. Conversations hushed as she passed, eyes darting toward her before quickly looking away. The scandal had already seeped into the hospital's walls, tainting everything she had worked for. At the front desk, the receptionist, a woman Olivia had known for years, shifted uncomfortably before murmuring, Dr. Carter, they're waiting for you in the boardroom. No pleasantries, no small talk, just a summons. Olivia nodded stiffly and made her way down the hall, pushing open the heavy doors to find a room full of faces that once held respect for her, now clouded with judgment. The chief of surgery, Dr. Harris, sat at the head of the table, fingers steepled. Dr. Carter, please sit. She did, shoulders squared, spine straight. She wasn't going to shrink under their scrutiny. We won't waste time, Harris continued. You are aware of the media attention surrounding your name as of this morning? I am, she replied evenly. Harris exchanged glances with the others before speaking again. This hospital values its reputation. Our patients trust us, and we cannot afford to have that trust eroded by external scandals. The word scandal landed heavily in the room. Olivia exhaled slowly. With all due respect, my personal life should not affect my work. I have dedicated years to this hospital. I have never let anything interfere with my patients. A woman on the board, Dr. Levinson, adjusted her glasses. That may be true, but perception matters, Dr. Carter. And right now, the perception is that you are involved in an inappropriate relationship with a high-profile CEO. Inappropriate. The word stung. There was nothing inappropriate about it, Olivia said, her voice steady. And I am not in a relationship with Ethan Lancaster. Harris sighed. Be that as it may, until this situation is resolved, we believe it is in the best interest of the hospital to place you on temporary leave. The words hit like a physical blow. She had anticipated backlash, had even braced herself for difficult conversations. But this? Being pushed out of the one place where she felt purpose? She clenched her jaw. How long? Harris hesitated. Indefinitely. Until the board determines that your presence does not pose a distraction. Distraction. Another word meant to diminish her worth. There was no point in arguing. The decision had already been made. She rose slowly, refusing to let them see the way her hands trembled. Understood. She walked out of the room without another word. Outside, the hospital's towering glass facade reflected her own shaken expression back at her. The moment she stepped onto the sidewalk, her phone rang. Ethan. She debated ignoring it, but answered at the last second. Olivia? His voice was controlled, but she could hear the tension beneath it. Where are you? Just got out of a meeting, she said, voice clipped. I've been suspended. A long pause. They actually did it? Yes, she said flatly. So whatever damage control you were planning, you might want to move faster. She heard him inhale sharply. You're not the only one under fire. The board is demanding I issue a public statement. Olivia stopped walking. And what exactly do they want you to say? That I don't know you. That I was misled. That you were a mistake, he said, voice calm but edged with something darker. She swallowed, forcing herself to keep her voice steady. And are you going to say that? Ethan didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, more resolute. No. She hadn't realized how much she had braced for betrayal until she felt her shoulders relax slightly. Good, she murmured. I'm handling this, he continued. But I need to know, are you? She looked up at the looming city skyline, exhaling slowly. I don't know, she admitted. Olivia had barely stepped into her apartment when her phone buzzed again. Another notification. Another headline. Marcus Bennett speaks out. Olivia Carter manipulated the media and a billionaire to advance her career. Her stomach clenched as she clicked on the article, her heart pounding against her ribs. The headline alone was enough to send a wave of nausea through her, but the words inside were worse. Marcus had given an exclusive interview, his perfectly polished statements crafted with just enough restraint to make himself look like the victim. He painted a picture of a woman desperate for power, insinuating that she had used Ethan Lancaster to climb the social ladder after their marriage ended. It pains me to see someone I once loved resort to such tactics, Marcus was quoted saying. But I have to speak out. It's not about revenge. It's about integrity. Olivia nearly threw her phone across the room. Integrity. The word burned. Coming from Marcus, it was a joke. A cruel, twisted joke. She had spent years trying to escape his grasp, only for him to find a new way to tighten his hold. It wasn't enough that he had made the divorce unbearable, dragging her through court battles and tarnishing her name in legal circles. Now, he was using the media to finish what he started, destroying her reputation completely. Her fingers curled into fists as she paced her living room, her mind racing. She needed to fight back, but how? If she spoke out, she would look defensive. If she stayed silent, his narrative would become the truth. The sound of a knock on her door pulled her from her thoughts. She hesitated, dread curling in her stomach. It couldn't be. But when she swung the door open, there he was, Marcus. Dressed in a dark navy suit, his presence was as polished as ever, the perfect image of the charming and successful attorney. But Olivia knew better. Behind the carefully curated exterior was the same man who had once made her question her own sanity. "Olivia," he greeted smoothly, as if they were old friends. She didn't respond. His smile remained, but his eyes flickered with amusement at her silence. "Aren't you going to invite me in?" She stood her ground. "What do you want, Marcus?" He sighed, tilting his head slightly. "Come on. Is that any way to treat your ex-husband?" Her grip tightened on the doorknob. "After what you just did?" "Yes, it is." Marcus placed a hand over his chest in mock hurt. "Oh, Olivia. Always so dramatic. I only told the truth." She clenched her jaw. "You twisted the truth to fit your agenda. You always do." His smirk grew. "And yet, here we are. The media believes me. Your career is on the line. Ethan Lancaster's reputation is hanging by a thread. And all because you couldn't stay in your place." Her nails dug into her palm. "Stay in my place?" Marcus took a step closer, lowering his voice. "You think you can escape me, Olivia? After everything? You think you can just move on?" Something snapped inside her. She straightened, no longer willing to play this game. "I moved on the day I left you, Marcus. You just can't stand the fact that I don't need you anymore." His expression darkened, but before he could respond, another voice cut in. "You should leave." Olivia turned. Ethan stood at the entrance of the hallway, his posture relaxed, but his expression anything but. Marcus barely spared him a glance before smirking. "Ah, the billionaire prince has arrived. How noble of you." Ethan stepped forward, unbothered by Marcus's attempt at mockery. "She asked you a question. What do you want?" Marcus exhaled dramatically. "I wanted to check in on Olivia, make sure she wasn't overwhelmed by all the attention." His gaze flicked back to her, sharp and cutting. "But I see she's already found someone else to speak for her." Olivia's fingers curled into her sleeves, but she forced herself to keep her voice calm. "I don't need anyone to speak for me, least of all you." For the first time, something in Marcus's face shifted. He wasn't amused anymore. Ethan stepped between them, his voice low but firm. "You've made your point, Bennett. Now get out." Marcus let out a slow breath before flashing one last smile, cold, calculating. "See you around, Olivia." Then, just like that, he turned and walked away. The moment the door clicked shut behind him, Olivia let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Ethan studied her carefully. "Are you okay?" She let out a humorless laugh. "Am I okay?" "Number, but I'll survive." He nodded. "You handled that well." She shook her head. "Number, he's still winning." Ethan leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. "Not for long." Olivia looked at him, trying to read what was behind those words. "You sound sure of that?" Ethan's expression hardened. "Because I know his type, and I know exactly how to take them down." She should have been worried, but instead, for the first time in hours, she felt something else. Hope. Ethan sat in his office, the weight of expectation pressing against him as the board members' voices droned on. The meeting had stretched longer than necessary, filled with carefully chosen words that all boiled down to one message: distance yourself from Olivia Carter. "We need damage control," one of the senior members insisted, adjusting his glasses as if the action alone would solidify his authority. "You have worked too hard to let a scandal like this derail your career, Ethan. Issue a statement. Clarify that, doctor. Carter is nothing more than a passing acquaintance, someone you mistakenly got involved with." Ethan's grip on the pen in his hand tightened. He could feel the impatience simmering beneath his usual controlled demeanor. A woman across the table folded her hands neatly. "It's about the company, Ethan. Public perception matters, and right now, this situation is making you look reckless." He exhaled slowly, tapping the pen against the sleek glass surface of the table before leaning back. His voice was calm when he finally spoke, but there was no mistaking the steel beneath it. I'm not issuing any statement discrediting Olivia Carter. A silence fell over the room. Some exchanged glances, others shifted uncomfortably. Ethan, he cut them off. If your concern is that my involvement with her reflects poorly on this company, let me be clear. I decide what affects this company. And right now what affects it most is the idea that I can be manipulated by scandal-hungry journalists. One of the older board members let out a breath. You're playing a dangerous game. Ethan's gaze remained steady. Number, I'm refusing to play by their rules. The meeting ended shortly after, with murmurs of discontent and frustration filling the air as the board members exited. Ethan barely paid attention. His thoughts had already drifted elsewhere, to Olivia. He had seen the way Marcus had looked at her, the way he had spoken to her as if she were still under his control. The anger Ethan had felt in that moment was unlike anything he had experienced before. It wasn't just about protecting her. It was about proving to both Olivia and himself that she didn't have to face this alone. Without another thought, he grabbed his coat and left. By the time he arrived at her apartment, the swarm of reporters outside had doubled. Cameras flashed, voices shouted questions, speculation running rampant. Ethan didn't hesitate. He stepped out of the car, his presence alone enough to make them back off slightly, their camera lenses shifting from Olivia's building to him. Ethan, are you here to comment on... Mr. Lancaster, do you deny... He ignored them all, moving past the chaos as his security team cleared a path. Within moments, he was at her door. She opened it before he could knock. Her eyes were tired, her posture tense. Ethan, what are you doing here? He took a step inside, closing the door behind him. You need to leave this place. The press isn't going to back down, and neither is Marcus. She shook her head. I can handle this. Olivia? No, she interrupted, arms crossed. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I don't need to be rescued. Not by you. Not by anyone. Ethan clenched his jaw. He had expected resistance, but hearing the words still hit harder than he anticipated. This isn't about rescuing you, he said, voice quieter. It's about giving you space to breathe. She studied him for a moment, as if weighing her options. Finally, with a sigh, she stepped aside. Fine, but I'm not running away. He nodded. Then don't think of it as running. Think of it as strategy. An hour later, they arrived at his estate. Unlike the cold sterility of luxury hotels, Ethan's home had an understated elegance. Nestled just outside the city, the estate was surrounded by sprawling greenery, the kind of place that offered silence away from the chaos of Manhattan. Olivia stepped inside hesitantly. The high ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows made the space feel open, but not overwhelming. There was warmth here, a contradiction to the man who owned it. She turned to face him. How long do you expect me to stay here? As long as you need, he said simply. She exhaled, running a hand through her hair. Ethan, this doesn't fix anything. He took a step closer. I know. She looked up at him, something unreadable in her expression. Then why are you doing this? Ethan hesitated. He had spent years keeping people at arm's length, ensuring that no one got close enough to become a weakness. But Olivia, she was different. Because for the first time in a long time, the thought of losing someone truly scared him. Ethan leaned back in his chair, the soft glow of his laptop screen illuminating the tension in his face. The room was silent, except for the occasional flicker of movement, as his security analyst scrolled through documents on the other end of the call. You were right, the voice came through his speaker, steady but serious. Marcus isn't just working alone. He has leverage. Ethan's fingers tightened around the armrest. Who? A beat of hesitation. Then, Robert Sterling. Ethan's jaw clenched. Robert Sterling had been a long-time investor in Lancaster Industries, a man with enough influence to shake confidence among the board members. He had always played the part of a loyal businessman, but now it was clear that his interests lay elsewhere. What does Marcus have on him? Financial entanglements. Sterling's real estate ventures have been bleeding money for months. The press hasn't caught on yet, but if someone were to leak certain reports, it would be catastrophic for him. I'm guessing Marcus offered him a deal. Help take you down, and in exchange, Marcus keeps the story buried. Ethan exhaled sharply, the puzzle pieces snapping into place. This wasn't just about Olivia. It never had been. This was about power. Marcus had used the media as his weapon of choice, and now he had corporate backing to make sure Ethan's refusal to turn on Olivia would cost him everything. He ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of it all pressing down. "Keep digging," he said finally. "I want proof. I want everything." The call ended, and Ethan sat in the silence of his office, his mind already calculating the next move. He wouldn't let Marcus win. Olivia paced in the guest room of Ethan's estate, phone in hand, unread messages piling up. Some from former colleagues, others from friends who didn't know what to say. She already knew what they were thinking, that she was naive to believe this would blow over, that maybe she should have kept her distance from Ethan Lancaster the moment his name was dragged into the headlines. Maybe they were right. The scandal wasn't fading. If anything, it was growing. Marcus had ramped up his attacks, feeding the press a new round of stories, each more damning than the last. Fabricated emails, edited phone calls, fabricated records showing her supposedly using her position at the hospital to influence high-profile clients. Every lie designed to erode her credibility. She was running out of options. A knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. "Ethan," she said the moment she saw him. "Tell me you have something." He stepped inside, his expression unreadable. "We know how Marcus is pulling the strings. He has a corporate ally." She exhaled. "Who?" "Robert Sterling." Her stomach twisted. "The investor?" Ethan nodded. "Marcus is protecting him. In exchange, Sterling is keeping pressure on the board, ensuring I feel the consequences of standing by you." She folded her arms, frustration rippling through her. "So what do we do?" Ethan hesitated. "I hold a press conference." Her eyes widened. "Ethan, I go public with this," he interrupted. "I make it clear that I won't turn my back on you, that I refuse to let the narrative be dictated by men like Marcus and Sterling." She shook her head. "That won't stop them. It'll just escalate things." "I know." The certainty in his voice made her breath catch. "Ethan," she said softly, "you don't have to do this for me." He met her gaze, his expression unwavering. "I'm not doing this just for you. I'm doing this because it's right." She wanted to believe him, but the logical part of her knew that if he went through with this, he would be risking everything. His company, his reputation, everything Marcus wanted to destroy. And yet, deep down, Olivia knew. He had already made up his mind. The press conference was scheduled within 24 hours. The media had already gathered, cameras flashing, anticipation thick in the air. Everyone expected Ethan Lancaster to do what every businessman in his position had done before: distance himself, cut ties, make it clear that Olivia Carter was nothing more than an unfortunate association. But when he stepped onto the podium, the room went silent. He adjusted the microphone, his expression composed yet unyielding. "There's been a lot of speculation about my involvement with Dr. Olivia Carter," he began. "And let me be clear. I will not be issuing a statement denying her. I will not turn my back on someone I respect simply because it's the easier option." A murmur rippled through the crowd, journalists scrambling to type, cameras zooming in. "Olivia Carter is not a scandal. She is not a pawn in some game of corporate politics. She is a brilliant doctor, a person of integrity, and she deserves better than the lies being spread about her." The tension in the room shifted. He wasn't playing defense. He was going on the attack. And somewhere Marcus was watching, realizing that Ethan wasn't just refusing to back down. He was declaring war. That night, another story broke. More evidence against Olivia. More manufactured lies. But this time, she wasn't just fighting alone. And this time, Ethan was ready. Ethan sat in his study, the soft glow of his desk lamp casting long shadows across the room. His fingers drummed against the polished wood as he listened to the investigator on the other end of the call. "We have what you need," the voice said, crisp and to the point. Ethan's grip on his pen tightened. "Go on." "Marcus Bennett has been having an affair with Judge Lorraine Whitmore for years. She's one of the most influential judges in the state, and let's just say their relationship hasn't been purely romantic." Ethan's jaw tightened. He's been funneling money into her offshore accounts, the investigator continued. In return, she's helped him manipulate cases, including his divorce proceedings with Olivia. That's how he managed to drag her through hell without consequences. He never planned to play fair. Ethan exhaled slowly, absorbing the weight of the revelation. This isn't just personal anymore, the investigator added. This is criminal. Ethan leaned back in his chair, processing the implications. Marcus had always been calculated, but this was beyond anything he had expected. Send me everything, Ethan said. I want every detail. Olivia sat in the living room of Ethan's estate, scrolling through her phone. The headlines were relentless, Marcus's smear campaign still in full force. But something inside her had shifted. She was done hiding. When Ethan walked in, she looked up, immediately sensing the weight in his expression. "What is it?" she asked. He didn't waste time. "We have proof that Marcus used bribery to manipulate the courts. He's been having an affair with Judge Lorraine Whitmore for years. She helped him win his divorce battles and God knows what else." Olivia's breath hitched. "Are you sure?" Ethan nodded. "There are financial records, offshore transactions, even private correspondences. He's been pulling strings behind the scenes, ensuring that you never had a fair chance." Anger simmered beneath her skin. "He destroyed my reputation, my career, while he was the one playing dirty the entire time." Ethan studied her carefully. "We can use this, but it's your call, Olivia. Do we expose him, or do we let this stay buried?" For years, she had let Marcus control the narrative, let him manipulate and twist the truth until she no longer recognized herself. Not anymore. She met Ethan's gaze. "We expose him." A slow smile tugged at Ethan's lips. "I was hoping you'd say that." The press conference was scheduled within hours. Ethan and Olivia sat side by side at the long mahogany table, cameras flashing wildly as reporters whispered among themselves. They weren't expecting this. Marcus had spent weeks dragging Olivia's name through the mud. Now it was his turn to face the fire. Ethan cleared his throat, his voice steady as he spoke. "There have been many lies spread in the media recently. It's time we set the record straight." A hush fell over the room. Marcus Bennett has spent years manipulating the legal system for his own benefit. He has had an ongoing affair with Judge Lorraine Whitmore, who has used her position to sway court rulings in his favor. This is not speculation. This is fact. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Journalists scrambled to type. Olivia leaned forward, her voice unwavering. "For years, I was made to believe I was powerless, that I had no choice but to accept what Marcus did to me. But that ends today. The evidence will be handed over to authorities. No more lies, no more cover-ups." Questions exploded from the press, but Ethan didn't waver. Marcus's downfall had begun. That night, Olivia sat on the balcony of Ethan's estate, staring at the city skyline. Ethan stepped beside her, offering her a glass of wine. "You did good today," he said. She took a sip, exhaling. "It's not over yet." "No," he admitted, "but for the first time, you're not fighting alone." She turned to look at him, something unspoken passing between them. He wasn't just standing by her side. He was willing to risk everything to protect her. And in that moment, Olivia realized she wasn't just grateful. She was falling in love with him. The world was finally seeing Marcus Bennett for who he truly was. The media had turned on him, broadcasting his corruption for everyone to witness. The man who had once commanded power with his carefully curated image of success was now fighting to stay afloat. But he wasn't finished. Olivia sat across from him in a dimly lit law office, the air between them heavy with unspoken words. His suit was still impeccable, his demeanor still controlled, but for the first time, she saw it. Fear. It lurked beneath the carefully measured smirk, beneath the arrogance he had worn like armor for so many years. "You think you've won, Olivia?" His voice was smooth, but there was an edge of desperation beneath it. She leaned forward, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I don't think. I know." His smirk faltered. "The press loves a scandal," he said, adjusting his cufflinks as if the movement alone could restore his authority. But they also love a downfall. And I can promise you, Olivia, they'll turn on you just as quickly as they turned on me. She exhaled, tired of the games. What do you want, Marcus? He tapped his fingers against the desk, a slow, methodical movement. You walk away, disappear from the headlines, convince Lancaster to back off. In return, I let you have your career back. A humorless laugh escaped her lips. You don't control my career. You never did. His jaw tightened, his mask cracking just slightly. Then I'll make sure you never step foot in another hospital again. Anger flared within her, but before she could respond, the door behind her opened. Ethan stepped inside. His presence filled the room, radiating a quiet authority that made Marcus stiffen. He wasn't smiling. Threatening Olivia? Ethan's voice was calm, but it carried the kind of weight that made even powerful men hesitate. Marcus straightened his tie, regaining his composure. Just a conversation. No, Ethan said. It was an attempt at leverage, and it failed. Marcus looked between them, his smirk returning, though it no longer held its usual confidence. You really think you can protect her from everything, Lancaster? Ethan's gaze didn't waver. Watch me. That night, in the quiet sanctuary of Ethan's estate, Olivia sat beside him on the terrace, the cool night air wrapping around them. He had been watching her all evening, sensing the storm of emotions running through her. Say it, he finally said. She turned to him, feigning innocence. Say what? That you're not okay? She sighed, setting her wineglass down. I don't know what I am. A beat of silence passed between them. Then, without hesitation, Ethan reached into his pocket. Olivia's breath caught as he pulled out a small velvet box and set it on the table between them. Her heart pounded. Ethan, I know this is fast, he said, his voice steady. I know you have every reason to say no, but I don't care about the timing. I don't care about the noise, the headlines, the past. I care about you. Her chest tightened. Marry me, Olivia. She stared at him, at the sincerity in his eyes, at the man who had stood by her when no one else had. And yet, I can't. The words left her lips softly, but they felt like a hammer between them. Ethan didn't react at first. He just nodded slowly, as if he had expected it. Not because I don't want to, she added quickly, her voice thick with emotion, but because I need to fight this battle on my own. I need to prove, to myself, to everyone, that I can stand on my own 2 feet. Ethan exhaled, then leaned back in his chair, studying her. And if I don't care about that, I do. Silence stretched between them. Then, to her surprise, he smiled. You're impossible. She let out a breath, somewhere between a laugh and a sigh. So are you. And just like that, the moment passed. The question remained unanswered, the velvet box untouched. But there was no anger, no resentment, just understanding. 2 weeks later, Marcus was called to court. The case against him had unraveled quickly. The bribery, the offshore accounts, the corruption, everything had come to light. The judge ruled in Olivia's favor, dismissing every accusation Marcus had thrown her way. He had lost, and for the first time, she felt truly free. Returning to the hospital was surreal. Walking through the familiar halls, seeing the people who had doubted her, who had whispered behind her back, it should have felt like a victory. Instead, it just felt right. This was where she belonged. Ethan had lost some of his board members over his refusal to distance himself from Olivia. The fallout had been inevitable, but he didn't regret it. As he watched Olivia step into the hospital, head held high, he knew he had made the right choice, because love wasn't about winning or losing. It was about standing by someone, even when the world told you to walk away. Ethan Lancaster had built an empire on power, strategy, and relentless ambition. For years, he had controlled every aspect of his career, shaping Lancaster Industries into a dominant force in the corporate world. But tonight, standing at the edge of a ballroom filled with familiar faces, He realized none of it had ever mattered as much as the woman standing across the room, Olivia. It had been months since the chaos with Marcus ended, and during that time, everything had slowly fallen back into place. Lancaster Industries had taken a temporary hit after Ethan refused to abandon Olivia, but his steadfast leadership and unshaken resolve had silenced the doubters. His company wasn't just stable, it was thriving again. Investors returned, not because he had bent to pressure, but because they saw what made him different. Ethan Lancaster wasn't a man who crumbled under controversy. He was a man who stood his ground. But even with his professional success, one question still lingered. Would Olivia ever say yes? They were in his home when he asked her again. No velvet box this time. No dramatic gestures. Just the two of them, sitting on the couch, the glow of city lights casting soft shadows on the walls. Marry me, Olivia. She didn't look away this time. She didn't hesitate. Yes. The word was simple, but it carried the weight of every battle they had fought, every moment of doubt, every quiet realization that despite everything, they belonged together. Their wedding wasn't a grand affair. There were no lavish displays, no over-the-top performances, just an intimate ceremony with the people who mattered most: friends, family, colleagues who had stood by them when the world tried to tear them apart. The venue was a garden overlooking the Hudson River, the soft evening breeze carrying the scent of fresh flowers. Ethan stood at the altar, dressed in a tailored suit that somehow made him look both effortlessly powerful and entirely vulnerable. And then Olivia appeared. She didn't wear an extravagant gown, just something simple, elegant, timeless, like her. But to Ethan, she had never looked more breathtaking. When she reached him, he took her hands in his, holding them as if they were the only thing grounding him to this moment. I never thought love was something I needed, Ethan admitted, his voice steady but filled with emotion. But then you came into my life and proved me wrong. Olivia smiled, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. And I never thought I could trust love again, she whispered. But you showed me I could. The officiant spoke, but Ethan barely heard the words. All he saw was her. All he felt was the certainty that no amount of power or wealth could compare to this. I now pronounce you husband and wife. As music swelled softly in the background, Ethan cupped Olivia's face and kissed her. Slow, deep, unhurried. A promise. A beginning. The crowd erupted in cheers, but for them, it felt like they were the only two people in the world. Because in that moment, nothing else mattered. Just love. Love is not measured by grand gestures or material wealth. It is tested in the darkest moments, when everything is on the line. Ethan and Olivia's journey proves that true love isn't about convenience or perfection, but about standing beside someone when the world demands you walk away. Through betrayal, scandal, and impossible choices, they learned that power means nothing without integrity, and that success is hollow without someone to share it with. Olivia fought to reclaim her voice, proving that no one, not even a powerful ex-husband, could dictate her worth. And Ethan, a man once defined by control, discovered that the greatest risk of all is opening his heart. Life will always present obstacles, society's judgment, past wounds, and fears of the unknown. But love, when it is real, is worth every battle. It isn't about finding someone who completes you, but someone who inspires you to be the strongest version of yourself. What would you choose? Security or love? Reputation or truth? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more unforgettable journeys. Thank you for being part of this story.